Yeah, Ravi, it is very thankful to you for inviting me to present the geopark geotourism aspect of Karnataka state. So I would like to share some of my experience and association in these 2 or 3 areas where I will be describing today with respect to Karnataka. See, the National Geological Monuments established and maintained by Geological Survey of India. Four of them are there in the Karnataka state. The earliest one, which was declared, was the one in Kolar Cyst Belt, which is pyroclastics and pillow of Peddapalli and other surrounding areas. And later on, there were a few more in the late 70s, which was inducted. One is the Peninsular Gneissic Complex that is well within Bangalore, Lalbagh, where you can see a board displaying the nature of the rock and its age, other details. And we have the Pillow lavas of Maldahalli in Chitradurga district, and also the uh, columnar basalt of Coconut Island, of Mary Islands, close to Udupi in Udupi district area. So apart from these four declared monuments, there are many features which deserve to be declared as monuments and also a tourist attraction. For example, if you take the Western Ghats or Sahyadri Hill Range, there are a number of uh, waterfalls like Jog Falls and also the other natural landforms which are occurring in those areas. And then you go to the north, you have Badami caves and you have natural bridges, and you have similarly the landforms characteristics associated with the close bed granite which can be seen in the close to Bangalore. So here during this presentation, I will restrict myself to the two National Geological Monument, one pyroclastic in Kolar System, the other one in Maldahalli Delava in Chitradurga. Apart from that, I will also make a mention about the landscape of close bed granite, which is a tourist attraction as well as a park which can be maintained. So I will also conclude with certain examples with similar nature we find in South Africa, where I happen to be visit those geoparks. Coming to these three locations, what I have mentioned, this stop six NGM, the National Geological Monument, you can see from the tour that this is the polar cyst belt, which extends for about 80 kilometers, and it is about 75 kilometers directly aerial distance, but by road it's about 100 kilometers via Kolar, headquarter of the district. And then you have here Chitradurga in the northwest of the Bangalore, about 200 kilometers away, along the National Highway 4 to Bombay. And here Chitradurga also is a characteristic one, which we have a National Geological Monument of the Pillow Basalt. And then this Ramadevari Betta, which is near Ramanagara, which are on the close bed granite. And the earlier Namadeva Betta or Ramanagara was called as close bed after the name of very close, the administrator of the district. So now I will first take you to the Kolar, Kolar gold field, which has produced more than 800 tons of gold during the last 100 years. So the some of the stops what I have shown here, they are all actually planned for the visit of delegates participating in the 36th IGC, but which could not take place. So, for example, here, apart from the one which is having a, because it was meant for the geologist, it gives the complete cross section of the cyst belt from western margins to up one, where you have banded iron formation, and then you have the mineralized zone, the Henry soft, and then exposed mineralized zones, and the old working and the footfall of the main champion lode. Then you have certain ancient mining activity which is clearly exposed here. That also we will be having a look at that. Then we have this National Geological Monument at this location known as Vedapalli. So we will have that like that one also. And apart from that, you have a religious place which has been now tourist attraction. Koti Linkeshwara means 10 million lingas of Lord Shiva, which is characteristic. So this is attraction here. So now this Kolar gold field, it is more than 100 years old now, almost 130 years now since it's in startup. And then the mine has gone more than 300 meters deep, particularly the champion lode, and produced 800 tons of gold. And there are number of geological and mining monuments which are worth preserving and then worth people to visit and learn from the past, particularly for engineering students, mining engineering students. There are many firsts in the area, and as I told you, 75 kilometer, you can see number of firsts in the mining. For example, the electricity first time introduced in Asia, which was brought from Sivana Samudra, yes, specifically for the Kolar gold fields, even before the electricity was supplied to Mysore. And there are number of heritage structures which are present. And what you see here is you can see the winders for the shaft, which is going quite deep, and some of the mine portions cannot be reached directly from one single shaft. We have to sit underground shafts also. So it's a quite a big machineries which were all imported from UK and other places, and many other things which were established for the first time here. And the BGML are presently the engineers from BGML have been guiding many other mining industries like copper and other things in India. And then you can see here there are many monuments which I told. One of them is the KGF Club, which was again more than 100 years old, which is now also is being used by the members of the mining fraternity. And there are many other such structures are there. This is one of the deepest shaft or in the equate shaft, and you have number of tailing dams which are dotted all along the 8 kilometer long the Kolar cyst belt, and then you have an underground working. So these are some of the things which can be seen. But then I will say these are all some of the heritage structures which are of characteristic of British architectures which can be seen here, which was presented by some of the engineering students during our workshop in 2019. And then the other sites of interest, I told the ancient workings on the eastern side. You can see these are all mortars which are used by the ancients for grinding the ore and extracting the gold. It's about half a meter wide, and you can see here the vessel which they have used, which is about again a big boulder which they can see the surface which has been smoothed by grinding the ores. And then you have many the ancient workings. So this is not an ancient working. This is working for a graphite which was done in the late 20s, 30s by Department of Mines and Geology. But you can see there are the BF band which I told on the western margin of the cyst belt. They also have sulfidic nature, and then you can have some gold incidences are there, and along with sulfides, and you have some of the old workings along those hills, and these places can be visited from the KGF easily. And this is the one of the outcrop of the National Geological Monument, where you have the pyroclastics with clasts of granite, gneisses, BIF, basalt, and various rocks in a matrix of quartz feldspathic nature of a ry- rhyolitic or rhyodacite or intermediate basalt matrix. And apart from pyroclastics, you have some pillow structures in some locations, but not as typical as what we see in Bardeli area where national monument has been declared. And as I told, ancient workings are there. And you have people who are interested in nature. They can have a nature trials trekking. So this is one hill which is on the southern part of the KGF itself, which is called Erakonda, Erakonda, because of the red soil what you find over the BIF, and there is a temple. Now they have laid a road itself to the temple, which can be directly given to that top, but people can access by trekking also. So these are some of the attractions which I am giving in a brief. So you can spend here a day. You can start from Bangalore in the early morning 7:30, and then go to uh, KGF having en route breakfast. There are a number of restaurants in the highway, and then in Bangarapet, which is before the KGF, you can have breakfast and spend whole day and then return back. That is one option to see the outcrops. But then, if people want to stay for a overnight and then enjoy the trail, nature trail, and other things, there are number of resorts which has come up of recently. Even there is one Zion Golf uh, Hills is there, which is just before Bangarpet, and then there are a number of resorts close to uh, Bemal layout, which is just part of the KGF, where you have facilities for overnight stay with food arrangements, so people can stay and relax weekends and then see the things. But the main issue, as I told, the main attraction about the KGF mine sites, because still the VGML is unable to open up a certain area as educational or reservation for the tourists. Unless that is made available, then we will not be able to spend much time on the mines. Maybe even if you go, you have to take a special permission, and then they may allow you to go inside the mine. There are, for example, the Henry Shaft, one of the deepest mine in a Nandidurg mine. Uh, we could visit with the permission, but then we were not allowed to go inside the buildings. We were just go around and see the some of the majestic things, which though not in a dilapidated condition, but you can see particularly the cooling system for a deep mine is one of the important things. So the air, cool air, which is circulated to the underground through uh, machines which are similar to our aircraft engines, which pumps the air with high pressure, and then so it's are all very good, interesting thing for anybody to see. So that way, there is a scope for improving the tourism. Already, tourism is there. It is only thing is how we are able to convert. We have been having a lot of effort to uh, with the BGML to create at least one of the shafts as a tourist place where people can be taken down to one or two levels and then show how the load exists and show some of the machineries which are all peculiar to BGML, but that has not taken yet because they have various other problems. Now, this is the cultural feature which you can think about, where you have this Kotilinkeshwara temple. This is one of the tallest linga in the world. They claim that it is 33 meters high, about 108 feet, and the Nandi, which is there, it is about 11 meters high. So, and they claim this particular establishment started in 1980 by one Swamiji Siva Samba Siva Murthy, who started it, and now they claim that they have already achieved about 90 lakhs of, and then short of about 10 lakhs to reach the crore, 1 crore. So this is a major tourist attraction, and the government of Karnataka has declared this place as a tourist interest. So that way, already tourism has started there. Then you have this Bangar Tirupati, and so there are uh, features which are of interest. Only thing is how we are able to focus the things for a different audience. For a geologist, is fine. We can take them and then show a geological cross section of the cyst belt and various features. But then, for a general public, children, adults, and other people, we have to have certain things which will be of interest to them also. Now, coming to the Chitradurga, which is about 200 kilometers, it may not be possible to travel from Bangalore and return back to. So we may have to stay here in Chitradurga. You have a number of good hotels are available, and this place Chitradurga, we have a training center here. So that is one of the advantage where we can make use of it, particularly if geology community wants to take advantage of that. Now already the training institute is providing this type of educative tools to the students from various universities. They come every summer vacation or other periods, and then training institute extend the facilities with the faculty from training centers to go, and they take around and show various features of these. Here, the geological feature which I said, that you have a old copper mine which has been closed because of the price which was not meeting the expenditure, so they have stopped it, which can be reopened if people are interested. And then you have this National Geological Monument, which is just by side of the national highway. When you go from Bangalore, just before that, you have it is about 20-25 kilometers from Chitradurga. And then there are the greenstone belt has various structures related to the volcanic and sediments and other things we can identify. One such additional feature, which is not a national monument, has been identified here: pyroclastics. So some of the things I will just show you here. See, it represents the granite greenstone belt, one of the best preserved in India, covers thousands of square kilometer, and has a geopark concept and other historical and cultural sites present. Reasonably good climate throughout the year and good connectivity. You have good hotels there, and you have a network of transports are available. And this is a geological map around the Chitradurga antiform which is there, and then you have here full succession developed of the Dharwar supergroup. Though the Baba Budan is little less preserved here, but then Chitradurga group is very well developed. So this center can be a nodal center, that the training institute, Madheli Pilolava, and then you have a number of these already mentioned sedimentary rock structures and other things. And you can also have some hill trials which can be defined, and hiking can be carried out. So here is the Pilolava, which is very typical of the submarine volcanoes, where you have a chilled rind, very fine-grained, glassy rind of things covering. And then you have the radial cracks on the bulbous structure, which you are seeing here. And then also the escaping gas get trapped near the margin of the pillow. So these are the typical characteristics of the pillows which you see in submarine condition when the lava gets there placed. So this is has been declared as a geological monument. And then you have, here is the one pyroclastic which is a part of the KM Craig conglomerate, a base of the Uriur formation which they consider. So here what you see is an agglomerate. Mostly it's all acidic volcanics. You can see the nature of the class what you are seeing. They are like bombs of volcanic eruption pyroclast, very big ones, and you see the surrounding margin, which is all a little bit differently colored due to weathering. But then you can see in the texturally also there will be a slight difference in the margin and the central portion. And another thing which you can see here, you can see the class what you find in these rocks. They are not normal water-worn class which you find either straight, angular, or fragment rounded depending on the distance of transport. But you don't find these type of angular features, tails and other things you don't find. So these are all part of the pyroclastic material. This pyroclastic, when you call pyroclastic, they are all indicative of subaerial explosive event which taken place and deposited aerially. But then here you had a marine environment also, so you have volcanoclastic material which are deposited, pyroclast deposited along with other sediments. So you can see a type section of KM Craig conglomerate is exposed in this, particularly due to the recent windmill roads development. You have a very good sections which can be shown to the people who are interested in the geological section. Granite, and you can see the large boulders of the granite, and then even those small gaps whatever is there between the two boulders, they have been utilized like caves, and then they have people have been staying there. And what you see here, this mandapa, from here there is a underground cave type of temple is there, where Ankali Mat Swamijis, they used to come for meditation, and they were staying. And the archaeological excavation. So this Chandravalli Caves is one of the archaeological sites about 3 kilometers southwest of Chitradurga town, and the archaeological excavations have shown the remnants of some of the uh, megalithic as well as Havana period potteries and other evidences indicating that it's an very old area where human habitation has existed. And this is one place where these small gaps between the large boulders have been utilized as a residential place by ancient people, particularly the Ankali Mat Swamijis, that they Sambasiva, no, Samkal, they call Mat Swamijis, they used to come here for meditation purpose. And this Mantapa, what is there here on the left side, from there, there is a cave temple type of thing where they have gone underground for about 80 feet down, and you have the resting place of the Swamijis, and then they were residing there. Whether they are regularly staying or not, we are not sure. But then, the inscriptions recovered, they say that this place have been used by over the long period of the history. And this is maintained by archaeological site, archaeological department, and lot of tourists come here, and the tourist guides also there. Uh, and then another interesting feature of the Chittorgarh city is the Chittorgarh Fort, over 2.6 million old granites of Chittorgarh granites. And here, this fort was constructed from 11th to 13th century by initially by the Hoysala kings, and then it was later modified by the Krishnadevaraya period during the 15th century by their Nayaks. And then it was under their control, and the structure of the fort has been modified even during the 18th century. And it has seven concentric walls protecting this site, and you have can see the staircase climbing and the gates. These gates are all not in a straight line, they are all a zigzag pattern, so that the enemies cannot attack directly the doors and gates and crash it. So this has a number of temples upstairs, and then this was very well protected. Only by in Devara, Hyder Ali has captured it after a number of attempts by some insiders' help, and then he captured this one, and it was under the control till the British took over in 1779 after the defeat of the Sultan. So this is one of the adventurous one. You also, and then here you have interesting, apart from temples, and you have the rainwater harvesting structures, which are still you can see them, number of tanks which are preserved there. And this Chitradurga is also called Chitradurg in earlier days, and the guides try to say that you can see the stones which are having certain animals characteristics like frog or, yeah, elephant or something like that. You they will try to depict that stones. So it is based on that the name would have come. That's what they interpret it. So this is another interesting area where the guides are available, and then there is a museum down below in the city which can be seen the recent Nayaks dynasty, how they have evolved and over the kingdom control. So those things can be seen, and that is the interesting feature of the Chitradurga area. And you can have a Chitradurga Training Center as one of the nodal center, as I already mentioned, and can be organized to conduct some program if people are interested. But then what our experience is that you don't find much interest among the school children, and then they come to these faraway Pillola war and other things which may not be of interest. They may come to the training center, and then they can see there is a rock garden is there which can be seen, and the children spend some time and then go away. That is what presently happening. Now coming to this close pit granite, what I told, this Ramanagara is there, Bangalore here. The close pit granite, which is one of the long, narrow one, which you can see in the geological map. You can see that this one, which is going northward. This is the earlier mapped as close pit granite, which was considered as boundary between Western Dharwad Craton and Eastern Dharwad Craton. Though later on the people have shifted the boundary between western and eastern to the eastern margin of the Chitradurga cyst belt, but initially it was considered that it is the dividing line. So these granites have been extensively studied, and the most characteristics, it forms linear high ridges, not ridges, hills. Number of them you can see Monad Knox and mounts, rounded hills. So they all forms a good attraction, geomorphic attraction, and then you have wildlife. For example, starting from here, Ramadevari Betta, which is one of the hills, which I am going to take you there. And then you have Saravan Durga. Here there is a big hill is there, surrounded by a temple and adventure hill climbing possible here. And like that, you can go further northward. You have the Siddhartha Pettas and then Devarayan Durga. So Sivaganga, many places you find the attractive these close bed granite outcrops as a small hills. And here in this one, when you go from the Bangalore, you can see a north-south linear one. This is a high strain zone, which is also of interest. So here there has been a quartzite mapped, quite a long one, and then actually that quartzite is not really a sedimentary quartzite. It is actually a quartz vein malantized along the high strain zone, and this high strain zone marks a boundary of the earlier the close bed granite what you are seeing here. This contact. So the close bed granite is extends from here to this portion all along the close bed granite. So here you can see some of the landform caves here, the hills around that one, they have peculiar shapes and they name it based on the hills different names like elephant, and then you have Saptarishis and dome like that. And here what is the thing, you have the geologically from the Ramdevari Betta you can go up and see the nature of the rock types, the relationship between the granite and the surrounding gneisses. The magma mingling mixing characteristics can be clearly seen, and you have a different varieties of granite, pink porphyritic granite and gray granites. All those things can be the magmatic process, magma mixing, mangling, mantle crystal magma. These things can be clearly studied and demonstrated for the people who are interested. And more than that, here this Ramdevari Betta has been declared as a vulture sanctuary covering about 3.5 square kilometer area for preserving the long-billed vulture, which is an endangered species in inland peninsular India. So this particular area has been completely fenced under the protected forest and is maintained by forest department. Apart from these vultures, you have bears, elephants, and leopards and panthers. So this sanctuary is open from morning 9 to evening 5 o'clock. So people can climb up and then see the different rock types and wait morning or evening. You can see the birds coming and spend some time and come back. Maybe along with this one, we can club with the Peninsular Nice outcrop in Lalbagh also as one of the trip, or we can have a separate close bed granite tour starting from Ramnagaram, going up further to Shravan, Durga, and other places. So it can be claimed. It can be a one-day trip from Bangalore and back. So this is one interest of this one, and this is the temple. And then you have there are some camps are there for rock climbing exercise. So people are conducting some programs for that purpose. So it may be clubbed with them, but we have tried to organize as a regular program as a part of the Earth Day to take the school children to this hill. At least 2 years we have been able to manage to take the children and make them interested in the rocks exposed there, and then your nature trial, fauna and flora, these things we are able to explain with the help of the forest department. But then April 22nd being a summer holidays, we are not able to organize it regularly. So if we have to establish this tourism circle, so we need help of both forest department, nature lovers, and geological community. Society had organized a workshop also apart from the field trips on the geopark and geotourism in 2013, and follow up of that we have given representation to the government to declare this as a geopark area. But somehow the government is not, unless a lot of pressure comes from the community, I think they may not uh, easily accept the concept. So that is the things. Even for the KGF, we try to uh, rope in the tourism department people during our seminar in KGF, but then their interest was least in that aspect. So that is the situation. Now, I would try to treat some of the features with respect to South Africa, where I happen to be there. Where you stay in a hotel, you find a lot of booklets about the geotourism. So here is a small map which they have shown in the booklet, where the various the geotourism spots have been indicated. Out of these, at least that these two spots, Pelanisberg Complex and National Park, and Witwatersrand Basin Gold. So this national park, even though it is not comes under the global geopark category, but then they are maintained there. So these two, I will just relate to the ones what I have explained to you. For example, the Plenisberg Alkaline Ring Complex represents a circular alkaline rock complex about 25 square kilometer diameter, about 572 square kilometer area. And then it is characterized by the ancient volcanic crater of 1500 million years old, and then it has a concentric rings of hills and rare rock types of alkaline rocks. So here you have the, you can see the geological map and the different rock types. See ancient lavas, volcanic breccia, tuff, and then the plutonic rocks. It contains cyanide, foiates, kimberlite, tingoites, and concentric cone seeds. These are all seen. So here, if you look at that, apart from the geological interest, you have the 132 species of trees, 68 species of grass, and then wide variety of animal species. Apart from the five big species of South Africa, 50 other mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, thousands of small animals are present. This is a map showing the road network, and they have number of lodges and then facilities inside for the people to visit, and then see the different places. So this arrangement made by local community as well as by government. And then other than that, you can see the other attraction is there. Close to this one is the Sun City. Many of you might have heard about the Sun City. So it is a great attraction where people go there and stay, and you can see the outline of the Sun City, which is very close by, and people go there and then visit the park also. And here you have the entertainment casino complex, world class golf course, hotel, restaurant, business center, health club, spa, valley, waves, many more attractions for both young as well as the old. So this I am trying to say similar thing. If it is can be attractions can be for different age groups, then you will be seeing more and more people visiting areas like what we have seen in Ramdevari Betta. So some attractions have to be there. Otherwise, it will be difficult. Either a geologist are visiting, a botanist visiting, or a zoologist visiting. That only will be happening, not as a common tourist space. Now coming to the other one, so Witwatersrand, Johannesburg is after the reach of white waters. Nearly half of the world's gold is mined from here. So greatest gold field of all time, 48,000 of ton gold has been extracted from the quartz pebble conglomerate of Archean age. Seven major gold fields in crescent shaped, like 300 long, 50-kilometer long basin. And here are some of the heritage site preserved. This is the George Harrison Park, the original discovery site of this conglomerate, which is gold bearing. It was discovered in 1886, almost same time like our Kolar goldfield. Attributed to George Harrison, conglomerate with small pebbles set in a sandy matrix. Red color is due to iron oxide altered from the pyrite. So this small size pebble is characteristic of these particular reef horizons. Whereas there is an upper horizon where the conglomerate are all very coarse pebbles. That is not the Gariferous. Now, these Harrison parks are all maintained very well, and you can see they are all fenced, and there is no security. It is kept open so people can go inside and then see, but it is well maintained. The conglomerate reef is dipping at 30 to 40 degree, and the incline you can see here opening for that one. But now they have closed some of the things because there were some deaths were reported from that place. So this is one of the stamp mill, battery mill crushing the ore. So here, yeah, board is displaying the characteristics details about these Harrison's discovery and the gold mine and other things. So like what we have put, but this is well preserved than what our boards what we are putting in our geological monuments. Here, an interesting thing is a crown mine, which has produced about 1,412 tons of gold, has a mine which is 60 years, mine in the basin for 60 years and 300 meters deep, and along because it's an inclined one, the length of the incline has gone up to 6.2 kilometers. The underground workings amounts to 1,715 kilometers. Now here they have created a gold reef city. The entrance of that is marked by exhibit of one of the stamp battery mills in the entrance. Here they take you underground tour. Mining has ceased 1977. The guided tour up to the level, fifth level, 220 meter below the ground, to show how mine worked, and even they demonstrate how the drilling is done or the ore is extracted. And then you have models which shows the mine. The model is this one is opened in 1980, Crown Mine Museum, a venture by Chamber of Mines to bring back the history and romance of the mining days. And the models of mine descending shaft. This is the shaft which is defending the rescue brigade man, and the mules shifting the transporting the ore. Then you have the demonstration of the gold smelting, pouring of gold mold, and the final product is shown. And also you have the exhibit on the shaft and hauling of the ore in ancient way, the refill and extraction of gold. Then they also demonstrate the panning of the streams, how it is done. So it creates some interest for the onlookers and the people who come. And the ore samples are displayed in the museum. The oxidized ore, the fresher ore polished, and streaks of the pyrite, which you can see here along that conglomerate. So finally, you could look at this. This is a layout map which is shown. Apart from what I have shown, there are other interests which are created, which can be of interest for those who are not very keen on seeing the mind part of things. You see here, there are number of rides are there, street dance, theaters, hotels, and kids corner. All these things uh, attracts people to come there and see both the geological feature, the mining features, the ore, how the people have extracted. All those things are seen. So unless we also establish similar things in KGF, where people of young and old, they can also get some interesting things to see. And here also, the KGF has a long history and a culture which can be characterized easily. And then you can develop a museum and then create one shaft at least to use the mine. So that is a thing I would like to say. Thank you very much.
I welcome our moderator for the discussion, Professor
Okay.
Shankar.
Hello, good evening.
So today's webinar by Dr. Rajendran is special because it marks the first anniversary of the founding of our GeoHeritage Group. During the past year, 18 webinars were organized, and the last 6 had a sharp focus on well-defined routes and geotourism plan. We also had a discussion meeting on the way forward, that is how to make progress on establishing geoparks in India. Now, friends, all these activities were fired by the imagination of people like Dr. Ravi Undavalli, who was buttressed by the technical team of Dr. B. Nageshwaran, Dr. Soma Ramamurthy, and Dr. P.K. Sinha. Many thanks to them and also to all the geoscientists who delivered webinars and also to the moderators who conducted them. Well, we had a very nice presentation by Dr. Rajendran on the geotourism aspects of Karnataka, a glimpse actually I would say, because it's impossible to cover all aspects in the given short time of 40 minutes. So some background of the speaker that we listened to just now. Dr. Rajendran is presently Secretary, Mining Engineers Association India, Bengaluru chapter, and a council member, Geological Society of India. He joined the Geological Survey of India in 1975, worked for 33 years, and retired in 2008 as director. Dr. Rajendran was associated with a variety of investigations. Remarkable ones are regional geochemical surveys in the Kadapa Basin, groundwater evaluation of airborne electromagnetic anomalies, BRGM project for geochemical exploration with gold in the Kolar Schist Belt, establishment of a center in GSA Bangalore for processing data collected during regional geochemical surveys of selected greenstone belts of Karnataka, and then formulation of guidelines and organizing workshops under the NGCM, that is the National Geochemical Mapping Project of GSI, and supervision of NGCM projects in Karnataka. Gold exploration in GR Halli, that is Guddada Rangavana Halli area of the Chitradurga Schist Belt. Dr. Rajendran was instrumental in locating new prospects for gold. Remote sensing studies in the northeastern sector. He provided inputs to base metal exploration and geoenvironmental studies and the Blue Mountain expedition. He was associated with several GIS courses at the GSI Training Institutes, landslide investigations under Project IndiGeo, a joint venture of the Training Institute of GSI and ITC, the Netherlands. The setup established ultimately became the Center for Geoinformation Management and Training. Preparation of GSI data layers of the metallogenic and tectonic maps of India for a collaborative project on Precambrian crustal evolution and metallogeny of peninsular India and Africa. And this was between GSI and the Council for Geoscience, South Africa. Dr. Rajendran also coordinated this project. After his retirement, Dr. Rajendran is a consultant for gold and base metal exploration both in India and abroad. He is a guest faculty at the Chitradurga Field Training Center of GSI. Friends, now we have time for discussion. You may ask questions to Dr. Rajendran and we can have a discussion on his presentation today.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Yes,
Yeah, my name is K. Raju. I am Director, Geological Survey of India, presently posted in Bangalore. In fact, it was a great privilege for me to hear the very nice presentation lecture by Rajendran sir, because he is with me for more than nearly a decade, I can say. Because whenever we are holding courses in Chitradurga FTC, since I was in charge for 5 years, without his presence, no course will be complete. Anyhow, he has taken me now, along with all others will also agree. In the current scenario, you have taken all of us to a great outing, sir,
yes.
which is much needed now. And it was, even though it was a virtual, it was a real, and it was nicely enjoyable. And I thank you very much, and I really appreciate your effort on this one, sir. And my small clarification regarding the occurrences of orbicular granites in Hoskote area, probably in the northeastern part of Tumkur. There are some catchy exposures, which you also told me. I have gone once, a very brief time. Do you think they are worth for taking up as a geological monument, or it is only an academic interest, or we can say some sort of only for geologists? Can you throw light on that, sir? Rajendran sir, please.
The approach for that outcrop is not easy. And we were initially planning to take the IGC delegates also to that outcrop, but then it will be a time consuming and lot of walking is involved, so it may not be worth including as spot for visit for non-geologists and even for geologists, unless they are very specifically interested in the granite structures and other things, then we may be able to take, not for a general audience. So, and even to declare as a monument, unless we have a good approach and other things, it's difficult for the people to go and see. So that's why we have removed from our IGC field trip also that orbicular granite outcrop.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Good evening, Dr. Shankar and Rajendran sir.
Good
I'm
evening to you.
from Jaipur. First thing, I must compliment you. So, can you please briefly just state the various sites that you have shown us?
So I just briefly tell you that in Karnataka we have 4 national geological monument. Out of that, I have covered 2 of them. One is the KGF. We have the pyroclastics, which was declared monument in 1974, and then the pillow lavas of Chitradurga, Mardehalli pillow lavas. But associated with that, for example, in KGF, the main interest, apart from the geological interest, what we have in Kolar Cyst Belt, the main thing is that the mining site, which is of more than a century old, with many firsts from world, because that is one of the deepest mines, and we have a lot of machinery, equipment, and other things which are, and even the mine models which are there. Some of them have been lost already. So presently they are not preserving that one. So they should preserve it, just like in South Africa, Johannesburg, the Gold Reef City they have created. The same way they should preserve one shaft at least, and the machinery associated with that, so that it can become an educational purpose as well as general public's attraction. So that is one thing which I have covered, and we have, apart from the geological and cultural sites also there associated with KGF area, religious sites. And in Chitradurga also, you know that all the geologists of GSI and others also have visited most of the geological important sites, which is commonly taken by GSI officers as a part of the training program. So apart from the geological monument, there are some other sites which can be shown to the general public also to make interest on granite grindstone belt characteristics and general trials. And then you have archaeological sites or historical sites which can be clubbed with that one. And the third point which I have taken is that close bed granite, you might have heard in the geological literature. The landscapes associated with the close bed granite is all a great attraction. And you might have seen that close bed granite in the Soleil movie, the great scene of this one that was taken from the same outcrop where I have shown the Ramdevar Betta. So there is a religious site. It is a bird sanctuary declared by state government of Karnataka in 2012, and it's a natural site and adventurous place, so where people can be taken and then shown. That's what these 3 sites we have dealt. And there are certain issues are there which I have not dealt about that one, about maintaining the things both in KGF and even Mardehalli Lavas. So I don't know, in the end, if there is a time is there, I will explain to the issues related to that, so that that can be also focused in the future. If any other question is there, I can explain to that.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. In fact, that KGF thing is already in the minds of many of the great thinkers. But the main issue is who will belt that, who will actually take up the responsibility of preserving it and refurbishing the various, in fact, including a museum. There was a proposal that a museum can also be established there, particularly from the mining fraternity. I'm also part of
Any thoughts on that, Dr. Rajendran?
Yes.
Any thoughts on who will bell the cat?
Yeah, there is very difficult. See, one thing, the geological monument itself, which is there in the Bedapalli village, it was declared as a national monument jointly by Geological Survey of India and PGML and Geological Society of India. That time president was Dr. Pichamuthu, Professor Pichamuthu. He was also there present. But I don't think that they have associated the villagers or local administrators at that time when they declared it. So the monuments were there adjoining the village near Bedapalli. So people were going and seeing. But recently when we had a IGC program, when we want to visit and identify the piece, because that place, as you see, many of the outcrops adjoining the village is not normally a place which people will like to visit, but then we are forced to go. So here again we went, then we found that they are blasting and then removing all the outcrops. So then we came to know that is a private land and they are trying to form a layout. So then with the effort of the DDG locally here, Dr. Ashia, and contacting the state government, and we tried to earmark the area which can be preserved as a monument. But then there was one issue was there, state government was the district collector ready to acquire the land and give it. But the question is, who is going to pay the cost? Whether the central government through GSA has to pay or the state government has to pay. State government told that we will acquire and give, but you pay the amount. But GSI says that we don't have the fund to pay for the land. So at that time it stopped. We have surveyed the land, everything GSA has done, and then because of the COVID, this one, they could not follow it up and it remained. I don't know whether it will be possible to acquire the land. And see, it's not that declaring the monument is sufficient. Same thing if you look at Mardeli Pilulava, GSI was given along with the monument, the land was given, GSI has put a fence and then preserved it. But the fence have been taken away by the local people. Now the no fence is there, only the board is displayed. So unless involvement of the local people also is there, they have to take initiative and then try to help it. And more than that, taking 20-25 kilometers away just for one outcrop, how many people will be interested to see only the pillow lavas? Unless there is some displays are there, how these formed, and then you arrange like a small museum or some attractions are there where people can read some material about all the volcanic structures and other things. Something if it is there, then people will be able to go. Otherwise, some 20, 30 or 50 people go, all of them cannot just stand. You will not be able to see that outcrop completely in clear picture. So that type of arrangement is there. So that is one aspect of maintaining the geological monument and making it attractive. Second thing is the BGML problem is identifying, because there is no regular managing director, and there is issues between the state government and central government, and then also the associations are there which are also becoming a party to, and there is an interest whether to open that mine and then start again once again, or whether it is viable or not, that is also not clear. So these issues are there and court cases are there. So I am not sure whether the government, it should be now presently BGML is a part of Ministry of Mines. Ministry of Mines should take a decision to earmark certain portion of the land and give it to some private entrepreneur to develop as a attractive tourist spot. And BGML also should maintain certain part of things, soft maintenance and other things. There should be a regular person, mining engineer, certified people, because safety is involved. Same thing happened in Chitradurga mine also. First time when we went along with Saukar, they allowed it. Afterwards, they have stopped the people going inside because safety issues are coming when you go to the mine. So these aspects have to be taken care of BGML, but BGML, they have other issues. They are not in a position to take a decision, and MDs are changing. So I am not sure how it will shape. But then KGF is already well developed as a tourist one. You have number of resorts are there. People are going on weekends and stay there and spend time. So if we are able to establish tourist place within the mining area, you can charge some amount. People may pay and then go and see inside and then come educational tour. That's what my feeling.
Dr. Rajendran, you made a point that Maradihalli is located a little bit interior, about 25 kilometers from the highway.
Not highway, from Chitradurga.
From Chitradurga, yeah, it's more or less the same distance from the highway.
Yeah.
But there are also pillow lava occurrences right on the highway. Highway cuttings show pillow lava occurrence, and these can be included in the geotourism plan. And also near the inside and near Ingeldal mines, there are pillow lavas. Those can be included.
Yeah, the pillow lava, what you were referring on the highway, it was there initially. When they widened the highway, those pillows have disappeared. So presently you are not seeing the pillows which originally you are referring to in the highway. And
know.
then, yeah, and then the Mardelli pillow are typical, the structure which is not deformed. In many other places, the pillows are deformed, so people may not be able to appreciate. And then all the characteristics of the pillow lava, the chilled margin, the radial cracks, the vesicles all aligned along the margins. Those type of characters you may not see in all the places. There are many places
I
in
agree.
India. So that's
So
why,
it's
because
like, seeing some pillow lava versus no pillow lava.
yes,
And
correct.
secondly, near Ingledal mines,
Yeah.
there are slag heaps. There is evidence for smelting of ore. So this
Hmm.
can also form part of the geoheritage and geotourism. And of course, inside the mines, we have old mine workings. There are wooden logs
Yeah,
that have been recovered
yeah, the one logs you have
and they have
dated, those
been,
logs are there, but then they should make it as an exhibit, but they are not presently focusing on the tourism part. They are only just
yeah,
maintaining it. No,
yeah.
yes.
So Shankar 1989 dated these
Yes.
wooden blocks and found that they are 2,000 years old.
Yes.
These aspects can be brought into our this thing, and also there are chromliths or megaliths, a circular arrangement of stones very close to Ingledal,
Yes.
and Brahmagiri, Ashoka Chakravarti's time. There are so many megalithic sites which can be included. And of course, there are several temples on the fort, Chitradurga fort.
Yes.
Then also, I thought we can have this. I'm not sure whether I heard you speak about the water supply system for Chitradurga town. There's a system of tanks, starting from the
Yeah.
Chitradurga fort all the way to Chitradurga town. They have made it so wonderfully well that when the first tank, the highest tank, fills up, the water will overflows into the next, and then to the next, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. That I just made a passing reference. I didn't go into the detail.
Yeah.
Rainwater harvesting system, what they have
Yes.
established.
Yes.
So that is one interesting
Right.
feature.
And
Many of
also,
the forts are there, like that.
yes.
Even if you look at the Gutti Fort, in Gutti Fort also in the hilltop, how they were managing the water. So
Right.
they were having a series of tanks and then wells.
Yes.
So that system was there.
And in Chitradurga fort, there are facilities where people made gunpowder. It was used in warfare. So
Yes.
such aspects can be taken in. And Sri Saukar, spoke to me this afternoon. He was mentioning of Gatti Hosahalli, where iron smelting evidence is there. Apparatus, smelters are found there. So Sri Saukar is here. He can.
You see, Gross has written that iron ore deposits the world, G.A. Gross is from Canada. So he has mentioned that this Wukko is a word which was quoted by him. That was the first steel that was manufactured in Chitradurga, and it had a very malleable character and all that. As a result of that, the BBC tried to investigate in Gatti Hosalli what is the type of wood they used to use in the manufacturing steel plant and all that. They did camp there, and in Chitradurga, I tried to help them to put up a tent and all that in that Gatti Hosalli area. They are even today, if you go to some of the old houses and all that, they have got some sort of nooses where they can smelt this hot iron, with a long this one and recovery and all that. These are, of course, there are very big heaps there, which you find them smelting and all that in Gatti. They are more prominent than any other place. As far as the tourism is concerned, or old establishing a malleable steel and all that, that is the place where we should see it. Of course, you see, geotourism, if you restrict it to pillow lavas and some of these things and all that, it is very difficult to attract them. And if it is a consolidated like what that Shivalik fossils have developed and all that, if you are able to generate some sort of a museum to say how these pillow lavas have been formed, how this earth has been formed, and something like that, the students may get attracted, the public may also get attracted in these things. How this has to be done. Whether this geotourism in India, I mean in Karnataka as far as concerned, are you going to prepare a one consolidated this one, or you are going to restrict it to some special areas?
Sir, the Geo Heritage Group is just trying to make aware of the various sites and then identify some of the sites which can be promoted as a geotourism spots. Now, from all over India, they have made presentation, as Professor Sankar has mentioned. 18 webinars have been held. So now, even if you want to impress upon the government, you should be able to highlight which are the things which you are going to give priority. You cannot make all National Geological Monument as a geotourism park or something like that. So the group has to identify the important ones and then try to develop this one. And also, Mr. Ravi must be able to tell what is the goal and other things. There are two way of approach he was making mention: one top to bottom and then bottom to top approach. So I think Mr. Ravi will be able to explain more better than what is their objective and how they are going to proceed.
Before Ravi explains, I just want to tell you one example. You see, the Mysore Minerals Limited, that is the Karnataka Minerals, whatever that is there, they told me that Chitradurga having already developed copper mines and all that, there must be some shafts and all that. Whether there would be a possibility of creating some sort of a tourism like that, one or two levels, taking people down and bringing them up and showing them how mining takes place and all that. It is similar to what they have developed in Kalgoorlie about diamond tourism and all that. So it is possible, no doubt, but this requires a large support from the government, as well support from the government initially, as well as the financial support to do these things till it develops as a self-paid mechanism. Once the people, a large number of people come and all that, we can charge them and recover at least the revenue expenses out of it. So I suggested that in the North Block we can create that, because there is already a shaft and all that. Are two levels, we can take them down and bring them up and show how mining takes place and how it gets concentrated, how does this thing and all that. But this all requires a support from the government. We can't do, you see, as individuals, it is very difficult.
That is true.
Okay, go ahead, Ravi. I think you have to say something about
Dr. Ravi Garu?
As Professor Shankar has so nicely explained, since 31st May 2020, that is exactly a year from now, in 1 year, we, thanks to, I would say, partly, there are rare occasions you can even thank a pandemic. Because everybody in lockdown and all that, we are a group of geologists, professional geologists, Geological Survey of India, Director Generals retired like Dr. Madhavan, Dr. N. Kutumbarao, and very good, those who are very much interested in the academics, like Professor Shankar, Professor Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee, Professor Aluwalia, so many of them, and professional geologists like Ritesh Arya, several of them, And you were speaking about the Shivalik vertebrate fossil park. You see, one of the oldest, a person who is involved in it right from the 1970s, Dr. B.P. Mishra, my colleague, he's also there. He's right now with us in this group. So we have all come together and we have formed a group both on WhatsApp and on the Facebook. And since 1 year, through about 18 webinars, we have been trying to find out how we can bring the first ever geopark in our country. China has, India has a lot of we have geoparks, but we have none of that. In this course of time, we have webinars right from the Himalayas. First presented by Dr. Bhargava. And in that also, Professor Shankar was the moderator. And Professor Dion. Right from Himalayas, we have come down to Rajasthan, then to Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, then to Andhra Pradesh, Assam, West Bengal. Now, for the first time, we have touched the southern state of Karnataka. So we are all exploring. We are equally, as you have asked the question, sir, we are exploring that can we really make a case first for the most important is geoconservation. As geologists, we are all aware our topmost priority is to conserve where conservation is essential. As just now Rajendran has told, some sites of the NGMs, because it is in private area, people have been mining it for just probably stones and road metal and all that. So it's a very serious issue. First, we should see that we should make the government and those who are at the helm wake up and see that at least our national geological monuments are protected. And one way to protect the monuments is build circuits of geotourism around them and tell the government that these are sites of great importance for geotourism, which also provide a potential for employment.
What is happening in Manishankar Jana?
We are approaching. That is how we are approaching the subject. So first, geoconservation, then geotourism through some doable tracks of geotourism. As Rajendran explained, there are two ways of attempting. One approach is bottom to top. The other approach is approaching politicians, approaching Department of Mines for this. So this webinar itself is part of the bottom to top approach, and all the webinars we have got is from bottom to top approach. So whenever it is required, we can even approach the top and tell them that this is how we have done some bottom to top approach, and now geotourism is going to happen. And God willing, probably on the other side of the pandemic, we can have some doable geotourism tracks. I suppose that I have answered the question. And now I welcome Professor Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee, who has joined, who is one of our stalwarts on this. Maybe he will have a question. He must have seen the webinar.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead. I mean, it's a good development. What we see is a very good development. Things are going on in the right direction. But anyway, with this pandemic, whatever you can achieve is should be considered good.
Yeah, I guess this is the best one can do when you cannot go out.
Yes.
Sit in the comfort of your homes and at least do some work and make presentations, listen to them, learn and contribute.
I have something to add to Mr. Rajendran's presentation.
Sure.
May I speak?
Yes, please. Who is this?
I am Sheshadri from.
Okay. Yes, please. Dr. Sheshadri.
KGF is very good, but I think it is beset with quite a few problems. See, going inside and not going down the mine, there is no excitement. I think it is completely not complete at all, the mine visit. Seeing the shaft on the surface, yes, everybody, you can see any number of shafts, but going down the shaft, that is the thrill. But who will, as somebody already asked, who will build the cat? Because reclaiming the shaft and making it work again is a Herculean task. It involves a hell lot of money, and who is going to put the money for nothing? So we have to find really who is going to do this. And apart from this, I have another thing to say, because the Kolar gold mines had very good survey officers. See, beautiful mine models. And when it was closed down 2001, we had made suggestions to the government that they should all be preserved well. And also we had made some suggestions at that time itself as tourism. KGF can be included as part of tourism. Make 3 shafts working and add that KGF club, and there is a beautiful golf course. All these put together, it could have been done well, but the government had its own, they had their own ideas, they never bothered about it. And also we had suggested that these documentation, particularly survey office, you have got 100-year-old maps, survey maps, signed beautifully by those John Taylor and Sons. All those things will be quite interesting for visitors to see at least. So we said that it should be preserved. Otherwise also I had suggested that it should be microfilmed and keep it in the archives. Whenever you want, you can retrieve it. That also was not done. It is very unfortunate that all these things, I don't know, I'm not very sure whether the mine models and how bad or how good in shape the survey office and the maps and the models, very beautiful models, I tell you, made to scale, right from surface to 3.2 kilometers. Every level, every drive, every crosscut, everything you can see on that. That would have been very interesting for the visitors.
Yes.
So that is also lost, I think, but I think if it is there, it may be less economically less costlier than reclaiming the shaft. Probably somebody should talk to the people and see that whether those mine models can be set right, bring back, and also the maps which are lying on the Survey of India tables. So I think this aspect should be considered to make it more interesting, I think, the mine visit. And if you can really climb the shaft and take the people down the mine, nothing more, nothing like that, I think. That's what I wanted to add. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice suggestions. So we should explore in the future how we can do what you suggested, Dr. Seshadri. Any other question or point?
Only thing is, if the government identifies certain private entrepreneur, particularly some mining related people, and hand over certain portion of the area and then allow them to develop and then charge the people visiting, I think they should be able to do. The government need not spend the money. Only thing is, it should become a partner and ask the private companies to develop it as a tourism spot. And I think there will be a lot of people who would like to invest and then develop the things and maintain, keep a mining engineer and then put some of the equipments operational. So it will be some initial cost will be there, but I think some of the mining companies can take up the responsibility if certain amount of land area and one or two shafts are handed over. Even if you see entry shaft itself, there is a main entry shaft is there, then there is an auxiliary shaft is there. So in the entire campus of entry shaft is handed over to them. They should be able to maintain it. Any one of the group of shafts they can identify and give it. So it is only a decision by the government to develop as a tourism and preservation of the ancient mining and history. So that should be the main emphasis for the government, and ask the private entrepreneurs. They will charge whatever the charges are to be done, and then they will recover the money.
Yeah. So in your assessment, will there be mining companies willing to come forward and do this?
I think the private entrepreneurs will come forward.
Okay.
Yes. They can float a tender.
I think this is again beset with problems, because the whole idea of the government is now to bring sell everything through auction. So no private companies, unless they participate in the auction, they cannot lay hands on any of these things. And KGF, though there are cases running, I think Kolar Gold Mines also is in the process of being auctioned once the cases, everything gets cleared, I think. So only if you get some good company in the auction, if they reclaim some of the shafts while doing exploration for shallow mine and then thinking of production something, then there is a possibility. Otherwise, I think another aspect is the government of Karnataka is asking for more than 3,000 acres of land north of KGF, that is north of the KGF mines. So MECL is exploring the area to tell the government whether there is any worthwhile mineral resource which can be explored or if there is nothing. If they say there is nothing, then the land will be handed over to the government of Karnataka and the big industrial township is going to come there. Whether we can ask the government at that time to look into this aspect is one thing that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can I speak?
Yes,
Can I
please.
speak to
Please go ahead.
I'm UB Mathur, retired DDG GSI.
Yes.
From underground, let us come to the ground level. I am a geologist fundamentally, and you know what we are not doing as a geologist is to prepare good brochures for the tourist. You
Yeah.
don't find a single brochure for any state or any district on geological tourism. So we have to prepare brochures, district level brochures, state level brochures, and involve the tourist guides also. Because without involving tourist guide, without telling them what to speak, you go to Lal Bagh, you find the granite, you find the hill, peninsular gneiss. The guide will tell you only one thing. This is a old rock which is so many millions years old. Nothing more than that, nothing less than that. He does not do anything about it. And everybody going up, you don't expect everybody to go up and read the board. So unless guides are told and they have the knowledge of what to speak about this gneiss is very important. So we have to prepare lectures, series of lectures for the guides to involve and tell them that when you stand in the queue for going around the area, you listen to me about this rock where you are standing. And only then people will take interest. And the heritage, our attempt to build a heritage site will be taken care of. There are few more things which I want to district. Other than these, we have to have packages, 1 or 2 days package, as uh, told by the key speaker. Like from Bangalore, you go to Ramnagara and back within a day. And there are beautiful rocks to be explained, beautiful sights to be shown. People are thrilled to see those hillocks. People are thrilled to see the boulders lying there where some uh, Sholay picture was shot. So people can be involved by having some packages tour like this from Bangalore to Ramnagara and back. It is 1 day trip, but very interesting. Road is good, eateries are good on the way. You have all the facilities. So like that, we have to look at the things which we can do as a geologist, not leaving everything on the mining engineer or those people in Chitradurga to comply with. So this is my request to all my fellow
Yes.
geologists to prepare such type of brochures. A long time back, for celebrating 125th year celebrations of GSI, GSI has prepared one folder, district folder for each district. But that is the incomplete. That is absolutely incomplete. And I don't think anybody will be having that type of brochure with him. I have got one or two. I had a book which I gave to somebody. I don't know where it is. Anyway, so we can have district level brochures, very
Yes,
informative.
Dr. Mathur, I fully agree with you and I resonate completely with your idea that we must first bring out brochures, colorful brochures with good photographs, pictures, so that they'll be attractive to tourists, and then market them, have tours, as you mentioned. And this is exactly what we discussed and decided in our discussion meeting a couple of months ago. So this is what is needed, and we should not depend on the government at every stage right now.
So
Whatever
who's
is
doing it?
possible from us, we should do now, right?
Sir, who is doing it? Let the people from the Geological Society of India, like Dr. Fariduddin or some other fellows, can take care of preparing these brochures, or request somebody who knows a great deal about the geology of the different districts can prepare these. let us give, uh, you know, advice to our colleagues to do it, and let them agree. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
So all the efforts, that we are doing here in this GeoHeritage group is 100% voluntary. So unless people take interest and do, it will not happen. You see? So you and I come here for the webinar out of our interest and some commitment. So, which is a good thing.
Can I speak, Professor?
Yes, please.
You see, if you ask this Mysore Minerals Limited, as I told you, they once told me that this north block can be developed as a trial shaft and all because it is on the highway and all that. If you give a small arrow, it is only about half a kilometer from the main this one. And you can show how the underground mining is developed and all that. You can show the whole economics and how employment is generated and all these things you have to build up. Then only you will be able to attract people and all that. But till that time, some company or some government has to support us. Actually, if you move through the heritage and write a letter to Mysore Minerals Limited Managing Director, and he actually has agreed that he is going to support and all that. Subsequently, he was changed and all that. Unless it is moved as a government order and taken continuously, irrespective of the change of managing director's position, so we will be able to do something on that.
I think, I'm not sure, but Geological Society of India is very well placed to do this, to pursue with Mysore Minerals and do it rather than an individual writing.
No, we can do that, but it has to come from an organization like your heritage organization. They must write, and then we can take it up a follow-up action.
Well, actually, GeoHeritage is not an organization. It's a group of interested scientists that have gathered here. So Dr. Ravi can write to the Geological Society if necessary. And based on that, you can pursue it. Will that be okay?
Yeah, what I suggest is, if he writes it, he must directly write to the chairman and managing director of Mysore Mineral, and then mark a copy to us. Then we can take a follow-up action on that.
Okay.
Because we ourselves is not really connected with the heritage and all that. Since you are now connected with the heritage and all that, and if you write, there will be some focus on that, and if they ask us, or if you mark a copy to us, we can go and tell them, like, you see, this is a big organization, heritage group and all that they have suggested, and this is how we have to do it. And if you develop it like this, you can canvas for mining of copper ore or gold ore or anything, and like that, we can try to convince them. The idea is at least the PUC people or students of junior colleges and high schools and all that come to know how mining is done for gold and copper and other precious metals from underground. That is a sort of education also. This is how we have to explain it to the managing director of Mysore Minerals.
Ravi Garu,
we can do that.
Yeah,
provided to somebody else.
Sir, on this topic, Professor Shankar, let us have some email exchanges, sir. I think we will move on to, we will have definitely email exchanges, and Rajendran also will help us because he is working for Geological Society.
Okay.
So let us see.
So your suggestion is well taken, Saukar sir, and we'll pursue that in the best possible manner.
Yes.
Dr. Shankar, can I make a couple of short points?
Sure.
See, I'll give you very recent examples from Rajasthan government actually. And these brochures were developed for two important sites. One at Ramgarh crater area, again Intac had developed it, and Dr. Professor Ranawat, retired Professor Ranawat. he was instrumental in taking it forward. In fact, Ramgarh crater is not yet declared officially as a geological monument, but it's very important geosite and recognized internationally also. So a lot of good publications had come up. So the brochure was really developed as suggested by Dr. Mathur for Ramgarh crater site. It's I think one of the 2 or 3 sites that are identified the world over. And the other site is that of stromatolites, which is already declared as a geological monument, but was in a very badly neglected state. Because GSA is giving the technical details only, very briefly, and there is no mechanism to follow it up. But then the state government was convinced through the DNG of the state, Director of Mines and Geology, geologists, and some of them are very closely associated with Mining Engineers Association of India, for which I was the secretary here, and we could really convince some of those members that they can talk to the concerned secretary, principal secretary, and through that, the concerned collector of the district where the sites are falling. And fortunately, 2 of the sites, the Chittorgarh stromatolite site and Ramgarh site, the allocation of budget was also made during this financial year by Rajasthan government. And the concerned collectors, they have been taking a lot of good interest in demarcating the boundaries and in developing a tourist geotourism site, along with some kind of a museum to begin with. So that will be a very good initiative. But the groundwork for these 2 sites, in addition to the Zawar site, which Professor Ranawat is also working, and the brochures were prepared in detail. What is the significance of these sites and how best we can go about, and what is the benefit if we develop it if we do the geoconservation and develop it as a geotourism. In addition to several other sites of interest, for example, geotourism related to the cultural aspects and the other natural heritage aspects, including biodiversity and geodiversity. So these 2 sites, I'm giving you the example of a very recent development in Rajasthan, wherein the DMGs, the Directorate of Geology and Mines, because ultimately, the owner of the land is the state government. So unless the state government is convinced about the importance of these sites, the things may not move with that kind of speed and alacrity the way we are trying to propose. But the groundwork on the preparation of the technical documentation, that someone has to do, which I think the DNG geologists are not in a position to do because they are more aligned with the mining activities. And that has to be done either by our group people or Geological Society of India, who can identify the persons and then bring out these brochures, or Geological Society of India itself, which has done a basic primary job of describing them in briefly. But then in this specified focused manner, these things, they need to be projected. And a tourism package has to be worked around it, which is just of a suggested nature. And then state government with their own consultants and tourism department, they can take it forward. So this is what has happened in Rajasthan. And maybe it should be replicated in other states, if possible. Thank you.
I think this is what we discussed in our discussion meeting. Yeah. Thank you. Any other point or question to be discussed?
Yeah, Professor Aluwalia, please speak on, sir.
I have a feeling that it best level to start with is panchayat level, not a district level. A villager has a more emotion and understanding for the land and its heritage than a DC or a district magistrate. And at the panchayat level, if we involve the school and the school teachers in the geoconservation, it will succeed better. Then our crowd will be much bigger, and of people who are at grassroots and simple with less pretensions. But if every geologist is working in the villages and around the villages, So one thing is that. The other about making a trip payable, having a mine museum and have a ticket for it. I conclude by saying this, that let us stick to a very grassroots level and stick to the lingua, which is popular lingua of that village, of that dialect. And if nothing, then stick to more visuals and maybe some emotions, some body language. Lots of it doesn't ever fail. It may also fail, but the chances of failure with this approach out of box are lesser. All our approaches, in spite of our being so experienced, 4 decades and even 5 decades, we are failing because we are trying we are knocking on a wrong door.
So you are suggesting a bottom-up approach and local language. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. Yes, yes. Any other question or point, ladies and gentlemen? No? Okay, then if there are no questions, then I think we should all thank Dr. Rajendran for his nice presentation. Ravi Garu, shall we wind it up? Okay. Thank you very much to all of you for sparing your time and partaking in this webinar. Thank you so much and bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Namaste, bye-bye.